You know the voice behind Sweet Caroline? What if I told you Neil Diamond's real story is nothing like the spotlight we've seen? From record-breaking tours to heartbreaking diagnoses, secret love stories to multi-million-dollar settlements, what's happened behind the curtain will leave you stunned. How he's living now? It's something no one expected. Stay with me, because the truth about Neil Diamond's life today is deeper, more emotional, and more shocking than the headlines ever showed. Born on January 24, 1941, in Brooklyn, New York, Neil's early life was shaped by the shadows of World War II. His parents, Rose and Akiba Kiev Diamond, came from Jewish families that escaped harsh conditions in Russia and Poland. Life was a constant struggle for survival. His father worked tirelessly as a dry goods merchant, trying to keep the family afloat during uncertain times. The Diamonds moved frequently across Brooklyn, carrying with them the weight of immigrant hopes and traditions. This gritty, working-class background seeped into Neil's soul, and later echoed through his music's heartfelt stories. During the war, the family's world shifted dramatically when they relocated to Cheyenne, Wyoming, while his father served in the army. For a Brooklyn boy, the vast open plains of Wyoming felt like an entirely different universe. He was there, sitting in the dark, watching singing cowboy movies, that Neil first fell in love with the magic of storytelling through music. Endless skies, the rugged heroes on screen, and the powerful way songs could capture emotion left a lasting imprint on him. When the war ended, the Diamonds returned to Brooklyn, this time settling in Brighton Beach. Though back in the bustle of city life, Neil carried the spirit of the West deep inside. As a teenager, Neil stumbled upon something that would alter his destiny forever: songwriting. Around age 15, he penned his first song, "Hear Them Bells," for a girl he admired. But it wasn't just a crush. It unlocked a new world within him. That summer, at a Jewish summer camp upstate, Neil saw Pete Seeger perform. Watching Seeger transform simple words and melodies into something electrifying struck Neil like a lightning bolt. Got home, he begged for a guitar. Soon enough, his fingers awkwardly found their way around chords, while his mind raced with songs yet to be written. His 16th birthday gift was a modest $9 acoustic guitar, unremarkable in price but priceless to Neil. Schoolwork began to slip. He spent countless hours hunched over that guitar, weaving melodies and scribbling lyrics into notebook margin. Even when trying to focus on classes, the music never left his thoughts. That guitar became a symbol, first sign that he might be destined for a path far from ordinary. At Erasmus Hall High School, Neil joined the chorus and sang alongside a girl named Barbara Streisand. Neither were famous then, just two young souls trying to find their way. But both carried sparks the world would soon recognize. Later, Neil transferred to Abraham Lincoln High School, where he took up fencing and befriended Herb Cohen, an Olympic fencer. It was an unusual mix, the disciplined focus of fencing and the creative rush of music. But both taught Neil lessons in discipline and dreaming beyond Brooklyn's limits. In 1958, Neil earned a fencing scholarship to New York University. His parents had hoped he would become a doctor, a stable American dream. But Neil's heart pulled elsewhere. Despite attending biology lectures, his mind wandered to songs instead of anatomy diagrams. His sophomore year, he was skipping classes to chase opportunities in Tin Pan Alley, the heart of New York's songwriting scene. His grades faltered, but his passion only intensified. Everything changed in 1961. Just 10 credits shy of graduating, Neil landed a modest songwriting contract, $50 a week. It wasn't much, but it was enough for him to gamble everything. He dropped out, leaving behind a secure future for a risky dream. His parents, especially his father, were devastated. It took years and many hits before that wound began to heal. At Sunbeam Music Publishing, Neil quickly learned that the music business was far from glamorous. Locked in a cramped room, he was tasked with producing catchy tunes for unknown artists. Whenever he tried to write something personal or meaningful, it was rejected for being too complicated. Day by day, his spirit felt worn down. When Sunbeam finally let him go, Neil was crushed, but also free. He realized he had to carve his own path or walk away. Neil's early career was a patchwork of hope and heartbreak. In 1962, he teamed up with friend Jack Packer as Neil and Jack, releasing a few singles with no success. Later that year, he signed solo with Columbia Records and released Clown Town, and At Night on the Other Side in 1963. Like the tracks, but sales lagged. Columbia dropped him fast. The hard years had truly begun. Broke and barely scraping by, Neil often had just 35 cents for food. He wrote songs anywhere, on buses, in empty rooms, even on an old piano above Birdland, a jazz club in New York. Loneliness and struggle became the soil where his true voice grew. It was during this time that hits like Cherry Cherry and Solitary Man were born, songs filled with raw honesty. November 1965, Neil caught his first real break. Jay and the Americans recorded his song Sunday and Me, which climbed to number 18 on the Billboard charts and stayed there for weeks. It also hit big in Canada. After years of rejection, this victory was a beacon, proof that his melodies had heart and unforgettable hooks. Doors that had been slammed shut were starting to crack open. Soon after, Neil met Jeff Barry and Ellie Greenwich, renowned songwriters who recognized his talent. They helped him secure a deal with a music publisher. But the pattern repeated. Neil was fired once again. He later joked that getting fired was almost a rite of passage for young songwriters. The sting never disappeared, but neither did his determination. Barry and Greenwich introduced Neil to Burt Burns of Bang Records. Burns saw a spark in Neil and signed him, giving him the freedom to create the music he had always dreamed of making. Dark, emotional, and deeply personal. Then came the moment that would skyrocket his career. In 1966, music publisher Don Kirshner asked Neil for a song for a new band, the Monkees. Neil played I'm a Believer, a tune he had originally written for himself. Kirshner knew instantly it was a hit. The Monkees recorded it, and when the song was released, it exploded. I'm a Believer sold over 1 million copies before it even hit the stores. It stayed at number 1 for 7 straight weeks and became the biggest song of 1967. Overnight, Neil Diamond went from struggling songwriter to the man behind America's biggest hit. This was the moment the world began to see the legend that Neil had always been inside. Neil Diamond's journey from behind-the-scenes songwriter to unforgettable solo star is a tale full of unexpected turns and quiet determination. Before he became a household name, Neil was the creative force behind hits for the Monkees, penning memorable tunes like A Little Bit Me, A Little Bit You, and Look Out, Here Comes Tomorrow. These songs were the stepping stones that expanded his reputation. But Neil never lost sight of his own ambition. Early in 1966, he released Solitary Man, a song that didn't dominate the charts, but quietly announced his arrival as a solo artist. It captured a loneliness and yearning for connection that mirrored the struggles he had faced. Raw, personal, and strikingly honest. What made that song linger wasn't just its melody, it was the emotional truth Neil unknowingly laid bare, a glimpse into his soul wrapped in music. Just a few months later, Neil struck gold with Cherry Cherry, a track that catapulted him to number 6 on the charts, marking the moment when Neil Diamond stopped being just a hitmaker for others and stepped fully into the spotlight himself. Riding this wave, he rushed out his first album, The Feel of Neil Diamond. It was crafted quickly to seize the moment. It revealed something unmistakable. Here was a singer-songwriter with heart, depth, and undeniable charm. Songs weren't just catchy. They were personal stories that would come to define his entire career. Came 1969, a pivotal year that would transform Neil's trajectory forever. His debut on The Ed Sullivan Show was a quiet but powerful moment. Sitting on a simple stool, Neil poured his soul into Sweet Caroline, inviting millions of Americans to step into his world. That performance was magnetic in its simplicity. When he returned for a second appearance, the scene had shifted dramatically. Neil sang Holly Holy atop a giant rainbow-hued pyramid, surrounded by flower children dancing, a vivid snapshot of the late 60s colorful and wild spirit. That night was bold and unforgettable, perfectly capturing an era's vibrant energy. Sweet Caroline soared to classic status, while Holly Holy held its own on the charts, even if it didn't reach quite the same heights. What many didn't know then was the secret origin behind Sweet Caroline. Neil kept the story close to his chest for almost 40 years until 2007, when he finally shared that the song was inspired by a photo of Caroline Kennedy as a young girl, dressed in riding gear next to her pony. At the time, Neil was a struggling songwriter, barely making ends meet. But that innocent image sparked a flame of hope within him. Remarkably, he wrote the song in under an hour, staying in a modest Memphis hotel room. Years later, telling this story at Caroline Kennedy's 50th birthday, added a layer of warmth and magic to the song that fans cherished even more. Over time, Sweet Caroline found a second life as the Boston Red Sox's unofficial anthem, played at every home game, bridging generations and reminding Neil just how timeless a single song can become. By 1968, Neil's career took another leap forward when he signed with Uni Records. Like his previous experiences with Columbia, where his songs were well crafted but didn't sell, Uni gave him creative freedom and strong backing. This was the moment when Neil transformed from just a talented songwriter to a true performer. It was also during these years that he helped introduce another rising star, Elton John. When Elton first crossed into the American scene, it was Neil Diamond who gave him a platform, ushering in the career of a future legend. As Neil's music deepened and his concerts grew grander, his connection with audiences intensified. In 1970, he finally reached the #1 spot with Cracklin' Rosie, a song that perfectly captured the payoff of years spent playing small gigs, writing songs in empty rooms, and surviving on the edge. This hit wasn't just another success, it was proof that Neil had cracked the code. The melody stuck, the lyrics resonated, and the sound was unmistakably his own. The world now knew Neil Diamond wasn't merely a songwriter behind the scenes. He was a bona fide star. That momentum only grew. 1972, Song Sung Blue became another #1 hit, exemplifying Neil's gift for crafting heartfelt and accessible music. That summer, he recorded Hot August Night live during 10 sold-out shows at the Greek Theater in Los Angeles. This double album wasn't just a record, it was a declaration. The energy, emotion, and deep bond between Neil and his audience were palpable, and Hot August Night became the defining moment of his career. Neil would revisit that iconic night with sequels over the years, but none could quite match the magic of that original performance. Later in 1972, Neil took a daring leap onto Broadway's Winter Garden Theater stage, becoming the first major pop rock star since Al Jolson to headline there. For 20 consecutive nights, he captivated diverse audiences, from young couples to longtime fans to curious hipsters, proving his broad appeal and fearless willingness to break new ground. It was a gamble that paid off spectacularly. Then, at the height of his fame, Neil did something few expected. He stepped away from touring for over 3 years. While others worried about fading from the public eye, Neil stayed home writing songs and reconnecting with his family. When he finally returned in late 1976, skepticism was replaced by awe as his comeback tour shattered attendance records across North America, Australia, and Europe, pulling in over $5 million, a staggering figure at the time. Shows were bigger, his music deeper, and his bond with fans stronger than ever. The next chapter of Neil's story began in 1973, when he signed an industry-shaking deal with Columbia Records. 5 albums for $5 million, an astronomical sum back then. This freedom allowed Neil to take creative risks, including writing the soundtrack for Jonathan Livingston's Seagull, a philosophical tale about a seagull chasing freedom and greatness. While the film itself failed to connect with audiences, Neil's music soared, earning a Grammy and even a Golden Globe. But behind the scenes, friction with the movie's director over edits soured the experience, leading Neil to vow never to work on a film without full creative control, a promise he kept until 1980. That year, Neil made an unexpected leap into acting, starring in The Jazz Singer, a modern remake of a 1927 classic. Despite having no prior acting experience, he was paid a record-breaking $3.5 million, becoming the highest-paid first-time actor of his era, playing Yusel Rabinovich, a Jewish cantor torn between tradition and pop stardom. Neil acted alongside legends like Sir Laurence Olivier and Lucy Arnott. Though critics were skeptical of his performance, the film grossed well, and the soundtrack became a major success. Songs like Love on the Rocks, Hello Again, and America became instant classics, cementing his place in music history. The song, America, stood out not just as a hit, but as a heartfelt tribute to Neil's immigrant roots. inspired by his grandparents' journey from Russia and Poland to Brooklyn. The song carried a blend of hope and quiet sadness that resonated deeply with listeners. It climbed to number 8 on the Billboard charts and became woven into the fabric of American culture. A musical gift from Neil to the country he called home. Through all the twists and turns, Neil Diamond's story is one of resilience, reinvention, and the enduring power of song. His music didn't just top charts, it connected hearts, captured moments, and built a legacy that continues to inspire. Neil Diamond's story is a powerful reminder of how fame often comes hand in hand with personal struggle. Before he became a household name, he was just a young man hustling as a waiter in the Catskills, holding tight to dreams bigger than his surroundings. His first real love, Jay Posner, entered his life early, grounding him in a world far from the bright lights of fame. They married in '63, quietly building a family while Neil chased success. But as his star began to rise in the late '60s, the demands of his burgeoning career pulled them apart, ending their marriage by '69. Bittersweetness of those years, climbing towards stardom while losing his first family, set the tone for much of his personal life. Soon after, Neil found a new partner in Marcia Murphy, with whom he had 2 sons. For 25 years, their life together seemed stable, yet the relentless grind of touring and late nights eroded their marriage, culminating in a highly publicized split in 1995. Reports about the settlement were staggering. Marcia reportedly walked away with $150 million, though Neil later downplayed the figure. What remained clear was that these chapters of love and loss deeply influenced his music. Instead of therapy, he poured his heart into albums like Tennessee Moon, turning pain into art. Then came Ray Farley, a quiet love during a turbulent decade, managing not just his personal life, but his merchandising business too. Their bond faced its toughest test with Ray's debilitating health issues, which inspired some of Neil's most heartfelt songs. Still, that relationship faded away quietly by 2008, underscoring the unpredictable nature of love in the spotlight. At age 70, Neil surprised everyone with a new chapter, marrying Katie McNeil, a much younger music executive who later became his manager. Their connection proved profound, offering him steadfast support through his 2018 Parkinson's diagnosis. This devastating news forced Neil to retire from touring after a legendary 50 years on stage. His farewell message was deeply emotional, echoing the refrain of "Sweet Caroline," a song that had become a cultural anthem transcending generations and borders. Despite retiring from live shows, Neil's career saw a resurgence in the mid-2000s, notably his collaboration with producer Rick Rubin, who encouraged him to return to the raw, stripped-down sound of his early days. This creative rebirth produced 12 songs, an album that redefined Neil's artistry and reconnected him with old and new fans alike. It also brought some of the last performances of the legendary Billy Preston to the world. Neil's music journey is peppered with unexpected twists. Songs like Red Wine becoming massive hits in reggae form by UB40. Even though the band initially thought Neil was a Jamaican artist, his songs have been reinvented by diverse artists, from Johnny Cash to Coldplay, showing how his influence stretches across genres and generations. Financially, Neil Diamond's life reflects savvy choices that balance artistic passion with smart wealth management. Over his career, he amassed a fortune through album sales, tours, and licensing deals, owning luxury homes in Los Angeles and elsewhere. His collection of high-end cars includes vintage Cadillacs and sleek modern models, while his wrist often sports classic timepieces from brands like Rolex and Patek Philippe. Beyond music, Neil invested in merchandising and partnerships that secured steady income streams. Privately, he maintained insurance policies covering health, career interruptions, and valuable assets, safeguards that protected his legacy through uncertain times. The key takeaway: strategic diversification, protecting your intellectual property, and planning for life's unpredictability are essential for longevity, both financially and personally. Neil's journey from a struggling waiter to a music icon teaches us about resilience, reinvention, and the power of connecting deeply with audiences. Even as he faced enormous challenges, he never stopped creating or inspiring, proving that true artistry and smart life choices can coexist and thrive over decades. And that's Neil Diamond. Icon, heartbreaker, survivor. If his journey moved you, hit like, drop a comment, and subscribe. More untold Hollywood stories are on the way. Keep shining, superstar.